Okay. Hi. Thank you very much for having me. I'm a product designer on a product called Adobe Portfolio, and I work out of the Behance office here in New York City. Today, I'm going to share with you what we've been working on this past year. So we're going to look at what is Adobe Portfolio. We're going to look at the product itself, and then we're going to talk about the design process. I'm going to show you some sketches, some specs, and some design work that's gone on behind the scenes. So hopefully that'll be interesting. So what is Adobe Portfolio? Basically, it's a product that allows you to quickly and simply create a website to showcase your work and customize it to suit your style and needs. It's definitely not a new concept. There are dozens of products on the market that do just that, but Portfolio is different for a few key reasons. This is the marketing site. You can see this now at myportfolio.com. It's designed specifically for creatives to showcase their portfolio, meaning it does what you need it to do simply and quickly. It's free with all Creative Cloud plans. You can access all of Typekit's fonts to use on your website, and you can easily add photos from Lightroom to your website, which is great, especially for photographers. But the thing that makes it most unique is that it syncs with Behance. I'm hoping people have at least heard of Behance, so I don't have to explain that. The idea being that you can create a beautiful custom portfolio site and sync it to your Behance profile, where you can gain invaluable exposure for your work on a creative platform used by millions of creatives and also people recruiting creatives, importantly. But you don't have to use Portfolio. We hope you use Portfolio. You don't have to use Behance if you don't want to. You can use Portfolio on its own without syncing with Behance. The choice is yours. So, like any website builder, you need a starting point. So one of the many things we needed to design were layouts geared specifically for showcasing creative work. We're launching with 5 layouts. I'm actually going to show you 6 here. There'll be one following shortly after. They're all responsive. And they aim to cover a variety of styles to suit different tastes and creative fields, just like Behance does. So I'm just going to click through. So, and now onto the editor. How do we build these things? The product must enable the user to quickly and simply edit their website. The editor needs to be simple, clean, and beautiful. It should empower the user to easily edit anything they can see, manage content, responsively preview their website, and publish and update a live website. I'm just going to go through a few slides now, which will basically show some of the screens from the editor to show some of the core ways that you can edit content. So here we're going to see resizing and cropping of images, direct access, anything on the page so you can edit, managing content, adding content, responsively previewing, this time in tablet portrait and mobile portrait. Switching to a different layout at any time, which is very useful. And finding a Typekit font to use. You can browse all the Typekit fonts, and you can very quickly change out the fonts to see which works best for you. And of course, adding and editing pages. So how did this all come together? My role as a product designer on Portfolio has changed very dramatically over the past year. As a digital product progresses, so too does your role as a product designer. So to go back to the start, Portfolio is actually the evolution of an existing Behance product called ProSite. This is just a marketing site. So there's a lot we can learn from that product. It's 5 years old. That's a lot of information. What worked well, what didn't. Also, what we know of the creative community through designing and growing the Behance network over the years and is invaluable in understanding how to build a product like Portfolio. So understanding your audience is a great starting point. So I personally spent a great deal of time absorbing all this knowledge by talking to people at Behance, asking questions, making notes. And just to say, I always start with a pencil and sketchbook. That's my personal preference. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but writing and sketching really helps me to focus, and ideas flow from there. So pardon the crude scans, but this is just a quick scan of my sketchbook. Sometimes I simply write words I associate with the product. I hope there's nothing bad written here. Or at least what it needs to do just to get it out of my head. It really does help. It helps to unclutter the mind and focus on what's important. The sketchbook work naturally evolves into UI sketches. Sometimes I'll sketch a feature or a small UI detail or map out user flows or sketch a new approach entirely to the UI. I'm not sure what these are. It's a quick way of purely and simply exploring ideas. So I particularly like this one I found because you can actually see the sketch actually married up very closely to the final design, which was kind of interesting. But there's always a point when you know you have enough to start actually getting down and designing the product. So in the past, I've used Illustrator for this to wireframe, but I started this job a year ago. There was a lot of work that went on before I started, but that's not a lot of time to start designing and get an army of developers building what you're doing. So time was incredibly tight, so I went straight into Photoshop on this one. And honestly, I'm sure Talon will appreciate that Project Comet would have been incredibly useful to me this past year. Maybe next year, we'll see. So all of these ideas, all of these sketches you've seen and things I'm going to show inform and evolve over time through concepting with the team at Behance. It's always good to chat through ideas with other designers and developers. A fresh perspective always helps. Designing specs and taking the guesswork out of it for the developers. Simply put, your team needs to understand what needs to be built. So I'm going to show you some specs and some designs now. So I like to create detailed specs of all the UI components and features. You'll probably notice I'm kind of OCD with this stuff, but I feel these things are very important when you have a large team of developers for communicating your ideas. The specs aim to cover all scenarios from rollover states to errors, active states, inactive states. This is how editing text looks. How do we message the users? These specs might seem like a lot, but the more detail you include in your designs, the less questions the developers will have, and the less time you'll spend managing the build. So you can focus on designing and testing. So I'm just going to show a couple more here. Also, the nice thing about taking the time to create these UI kits is that it's really easy to update the designs in the future. So I don't need to update 100 mock-ups and wireframes. I can simply update these style guides and specs. And of course, responsive design is very important. It's not the developer's job to figure this out. You'll be the developer's best friend if you take the guesswork out of them, believe me. And finally, user testing. This is really important in product design. You learn so much from using the product. The best way to know if it works is to use it. You'll be amazed by what you discover. I have no credit for this, sorry. But the point being, people don't always use the product the way you expected them to do. But that's good. That's a good thing. You learn, you improve, you iterate on the product, you keep testing, and you repeat that process. And honestly, sometimes it does feel a little like this. The past few months of my life have been a little bit like this. But the product will be better for it. So in conclusion, if I was to take anything away from this, it would be to slow down, get inspired, understand your audience, make notes, and sketch ideas. Concept, work with your team, explore ideas, think it through. Detail and design. Someone else needs to design what you're designing. Someone else needs to build what you're designing. Test. Does it work? How can it be improved? It can always be improved. And learn, always. Every experience in design is a good learning experience. So that's me.